Right. So today we're really going to dig into
Huh?
the world of Linux,
Mm-hmm.
open source software, and of course the mind behind it all,
Right.
Linus Torvalds.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be taking a deep dive into his autobiography just for fun.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it is anything but a typical tech
Yeah.
memoir.
It's a wild ride. I
Yeah.
mean, you go through like the early days of the internet.
Oh, yeah.
The just Wild West days, the chaotic birth of Linux.
Right.
And then just the challenges of accidentally becoming like a tech
Yeah.
icon.
Yeah, you become this sort of reluctant
Yeah.
hero in a way.
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting is Torvalds, right from the get-go in the book, he kind of throws this like really thought-provoking concept at you.
Mm-hmm.
He calls it his meaning of life theory.
Which
Have you heard of this?
I've heard it. It's a little heavy for a book about computer programming.
It is a little bit, right.
You think you're going to be getting all technical and you're like, whoa.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, he goes there.
Yeah.
But it's Linus. So,
Delightus.
yeah, expect the unexpected. So essentially what he does is he boils life down to 3
Okay.
basic stages: survival, social order,
Okay.
and entertainment,
I like it.
in that order.
Interesting.
And he believes that everything we do, everything fits somewhere within those stages.
Wow.
Even things like, and I'm not making this up, sex and war.
Well, and you know what?
I know.
It sounds a little out there, but when you actually read through
Yeah.
his explanation for it,
It's true.
it's actually pretty clever
Yeah.
how he connects it all.
Yeah. He argues that like even war stems from the survival instinct,
Right.
right? Think about early wars were often fought over like resources and territory.
Mm.
And then, as civilizations developed, war kind of morphed into this tool for establishing social order.
Yeah. Dominance hierarchies. Empires trying to expand.
Exactly. And then he even takes it to today's world, right?
Yeah.
Where, we may not be...
Like hand to hand anymore.
Exactly. We're not fighting hand to hand for territory.
Yeah.
But are we not entertained
Oh, absolutely.
by the concept of war?
Video games.
Yes. Movies.
It's chilling when you think about it.
It is.
Applying his theory to it, right?
Yeah, it's like ingrained in us.
Yeah.
This primal...
But that's what I think is so fascinating about this book.
Yeah. You have Linus Torvalds. He's this brilliant programmer. Yeah. He created Linux, and yet he's also...
The philosopher.
This philosopher.
Yes.
Right.
A funny philosopher at that.
Yes, exactly.
With a very dry sense of humor. This is not like your, self-help guru talking about this. It's just very matter of fact.
Yes, and I think that's what I appreciate about it.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, this is how I see the world.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with it.
And he's probably right.
Yeah, and he probably is right.
About a lot of it.
But, speaking of unexpected journeys, let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
To young Linus's world.
Okay.
Because this is a kid who...
Let's go back.
Was not into
typical
childhood things.
Okay.
Like he was captivated by his grandfather's Commodore VIC-20 computer,
right.
Which, that dates us.
It does date us a little bit.
A little bit.
For those of you who don't.
Well, the youngsters out there.
The youngsters out there who weren't around.
They're like, what?
In the early 80s.
Commodore what?
The Commodore VIC-20. It was a big deal.
It was.
It was a really big deal. But it's fascinating because,
it is.
Most kids would have just played games on this.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's what it was for.
But Linus.
Pac-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was digging into the actual programming.
He was way ahead of his time.
He was learning to program in machine language.
Wow.
Which is like...
That's hardcore.
It's hardcore.
That's the lowest level of
that's programming.
Yes. So instead of just playing the games, he's like,
how
does this work?
Yeah.
What makes this thing tick?
It's like knowing how to rebuild a car before you can even drive.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. Right? Instead of just driving it.
Yeah. And this is so crucial.
Oh, right.
Because this fascination that he had with understanding how things worked at their core, that's what fueled his passion for technology.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the big takeaways here, right? Is that he wasn't some kind of coding prodigy.
Right.
He didn't just like effortlessly crank out lines of code.
It was really about this.
It was driven by this deep curiosity.
Yeah.
To understand how things work at their most fundamental level.
Absolutely.
And that's important because that directly ties into his later work with Linux.
Right, because then when he creates Linux, it's not just about building an operating system.
Exactly.
It's about, I want like complete control. I need to understand this machine.
Yes.
Which he didn't get from other systems.
And he even talks about in the book how frustrating it was for him as computers became more and more like appliances.
Right. Like, oh, you can't
tinker
with this.
You can't like pop the hood anymore.
Right.
And really understand what's going on.
Proprietary.
Yes, all this proprietary stuff.
Yeah.
So in a way, Linux was almost inevitable.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah, it was
kind of building up to that point.
Yeah, it's like all these early experiences just sort of laid the foundation
for
this massive thing that would take over the world.
But let's talk about the system that both frustrated and inspired Linus.
Okay.
Which is Minix. Because you can't tell the story of Linux without talking about
the precursor,
the operating system that sparked it all.
Okay.
So Minix. It was a Unix-like operating system.
A Unix-like operating system.
And Unix at the time was known for being elegant and efficient.
Right. Very powerful.
But for time.
For its time, it had limitations, especially for someone as driven, and let's face it, as particular as Linus Torvalds.
Yeah, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it your way.
Exactly. And
I'm not afraid to.
This is where things
get... break some eggs to make an omelet.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting. Okay. So you've got the late 1980s.
Yeah.
Internet is like barely even a thing yet.
Yeah.
And, good software.
Right.
It's hard to come by.
Yeah.
You can't just like go to the App Store.
Not exactly.
And download whatever you want.
Right. You've got to be.
And Linus is getting more and more frustrated with the limitations of Minix.
And that's where I think his, I'll just build it myself mentality comes in.
Yes.
And it's so funny because I think so many of us can relate to that.
Oh, totally.
With technology.
All the time.
It's like, this thing is frustrating me. I could do this better.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about, building an app.
It's not.
We're talking about, an operating system.
Redesigning the UI.
The core of a computer system.
He's like, I'm going to rewrite this whole thing.
It's intense.
Yeah.
From scratch.
But that's what he does.
Basically.
He dives headfirst into this.
Crazy.
And you have to remember, at this point,
yeah,
his goal is not...
He's not thinking big picture global domination.
He's just like...
World's most...
I need something that works.
Popular operating system. Yeah. He's just trying to make his life easier.
I want to build something for myself.
Right.
That I can control.
Exactly.
And he even says in the book, he's like, you know what? If readily available operating systems had been better back then...
He probably wouldn't have bothered.
Linux might never have been born.
Right.
Talk about a happy accident.
It's true.
For the entire tech world. How many things are just like
the
result of someone being like, oh, this is so annoying.
It's got to start somewhere.
I know what I need.
It's got to start somewhere.
So just make it.
Right.
Yeah.
But this happy accident, it almost turned into a disaster.
Okay.
Because Linus tells this story.
Oh, no.
About how he accidentally overwrites crucial system files.
Ooh.
And it's like...
That's every...
Like you can...
Programmers...
Worst nightmare.
It's like the ultimate nightmare.
Yeah.
But he's like, even Linus Torvalds.
I can't believe he admitted to that.
He's human.
That is...
He makes mistakes. And it's almost comforting in a weird way.
Right.
Right?
It's the ultimate equalizer.
It's the ultimate equalizer.
Yeah.
You know?
Even Linus Torvalds, even the creator of Linux,
can
accidentally hit Control, Alt, Delete.
It's the wrong key.
Or whatever it was.
Deletes the wrong thing.
And, lose a bunch of data.
It happens.
But it's what happens next that really matters.
Okay.
And this is where Linux really starts to take shape.
Yeah.
So you've got...
From this mistake.
This little side project.
Yeah.
Born out of frustration and a desire for something better.
Yeah. Just make it work for me.
Right. Yeah. And he starts to...
Puts it out there.
Gain traction.
Because why not?
And remember, this is the early internet we're talking about.
Or like bulletin boards.
Yes.
Dial-up modems.
Forums.
Yeah.
This is like the Wild West.
Yeah.
of online communication.
Yeah, it's the Wild West of the internet.
So Linus, he kind of just like almost casually
just throws it out there.
Shares this project online.
Into the void.
Yes.
See what happens. And the response
was
pretty big.
Bigger than he could ever imagine.
I think bigger than he was expecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah.
I mean, suddenly you have programmers.
From all over the world.
Yeah. Who are like captivated by this.
Because they're using it.
By this creation.
And they're like, oh, on Linux, I can actually like contribute to this.
They're not just downloading it.
Yeah.
They're like actively contributing code.
It's open source, baby.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing.
Suggesting improvements, building a community around it.
Yeah. It's a community effort.
It's incredible.
It's really cool.
It's a testament,
if you think about it,
to the power of open source.
It's like the perfect example of like the beauty of open source.
And this spirit of like shared passion and collective innovation.
Everyone's working together.
Fueled Linux's
toward this common goal.
Meteoric rise.
Yeah.
I mean, it just exploded.
To make something.
And it wasn't just in like tech circles. Like Linus tells this really funny anecdote.
Oh, yeah.
About.
What is it?
How?
Is it the Linux news group?
The Linux news group.
Surpasses, like, I don't know. The alt something or other news group.
Alt.sex news group.
There we go.
In terms of traffic online.
More people are talking about Linux than whatever's going on over there.
Which I just love.
I love
that he includes that.
It's such a...
Because it's so...
Linus.
Thing to include.
And it just highlights...
Yeah.
How quickly Linux was spreading.
This is huge.
This wasn't just a tech thing anymore. It was like capturing the world's attention.
Yeah.
But with that attention came a whole new challenges.
Yeah. Because if you're like thrust into the spotlight.
For someone like Linus.
He did not like the spotlight.
Who's like.
He's a very private person.
Incredibly introverted.
Yeah.
He talks about his struggles with public speaking.
I relate to that. Right.
Not a fan.
The pressure of leading this global community.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Like this thing that he created.
Yeah.
Has become this global phenomenon.
And everyone's looking to you.
And he almost turns down a major speaking engagement.
You almost turned down a speaking engagement.
Because of stage fright.
Because he was too nervous.
And I just love that.
That's amazing.
Because it's like...
Poor guy.
It's so relatable.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's like...
Even Linus Torvalds gets nervous.
The best of us.
Right.
You know? It just humanizes him.
Totally.
Right.
He's not just this untouchable
genius in an ivory tower coding away.
He's someone who grapples with... He's a real person.
Self-doubt and discomfort, just like the rest of us.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I think what's so inspiring is that he doesn't let
it stop him.
Those anxieties paralyze him.
Right.
He pushes through.
Yeah.
Because he's driven by this passion for Linux.
He's got that drive.
And the community.
That's what it is.
That formed around it.
He's got that drive. And, you know, as Linux is becoming more and more popular, it's attracting some pretty high-profile admirers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking...
Big names.
Big players in the tech world.
Yeah.
Companies like Netscape, IBM.
Wow.
Sun Microsystems.
They all wanted...
Everyone wants a piece of the Linux pie.
Yeah. And I imagine that must have been both exciting and kind of scary for Linus.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, it's like this project that you started...
You're like, I made
in your bedroom.
In my basement.
It's now being embraced.
Right.
By these huge corporations.
Yeah. And you're like...
But at the same time...
Do I sell out?
How do you stay true to the open source ethos?
Right.
Like the whole spirit of community and collaboration that fueled Linux's success.
Right.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah.
When you're dealing with these companies that
have their own
agendas.
And they want to...
They want to make money.
Make money, and they want to, you know, control things.
Exactly.
And Linux is the antithesis of that.
And that's what I think is so interesting about this part of the book.
Right.
Is that you really see Linus wrestling with these questions.
Totally.
Of like, how do you...
He's like, wait a minute.
Balance these forces.
This is
the ideals of open source.
Signed up for.
With the realities of like the corporate world.
Yeah.
And he tells this great story
Okay.
about how he gets this phone call one day.
Okay.
Completely out of the blue.
Okay.
And it's from
some random guy.
Some guy.
Okay.
He's like offering him $10 million.
What?
$10 million.
Just to like...
To essentially do nothing.
It's okay.
Just like lend his name.
To like deface us up.
To some venture.
Okay.
And he's like, $10 million.
Yeah.
Like who?
That's tempting.
Wouldn't at least be tempted by that.
Right.
Right.
Take the money and run.
But he turns it down.
He says no.
Flat out.
Really?
He's like, I don't believe in this project.
Wow.
I'm not going to
But for him,
compromise my values.
Sticking to his principles.
For any amount of money.
Yeah.
Even $10 million.
That's admirable.
And I think that says so much
Yeah.
about him as a person.
Yeah, it really does.
Right.
He's not in it for the money.
He was driven by this desire.
He really believes in this.
To create something meaningful.
He wants to make something.
Something that would benefit.
That benefits everyone.
That's everyone.
Not just line his own pockets.
Not just himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes...
And that's why people love him.
Linus Torvalds.
Such a fascinating figure.
He's like this...
He's this walking paradox.
Total anomaly.
Right.
Right.
But he's this global icon.
A reluctant rock star.
Who shuns the spotlight.
Yeah.
He's this tech revolutionary.
He's totally content. Living a
normal life.
With his family.
Yeah.
In Finland.
And be with his family.
Right. Like, he doesn't need...
He's living the dream.
Private jet. Or a billion-dollar mansion.
Yeah.
To feel
He's not trying to buy a bigger yacht than anyone else.
And I think that's a really...
He's got his priorities.
Important message for all of us.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not all about the money.
It's not all about the money. It's not all about the fame.
It's about
pursuing your passion.
It's
making a difference.
And the legacy.
And sometimes it's okay.
Sometimes the simplest things.
To just live a normal life.
Are the most important.
Yeah. And I think that's...
Absolutely.
You know, as we're wrapping up our deep dive here.
Yeah.
Into Just for Fun.
Linus's book.
It's a really inspiring story.
It is.
It is. I mean, he's an inspiration.
He is.
Anybody who's ever
tinkered on a computer.
Taken off.
Felt that thrill
of printing.
Of creating something new.
Yeah.
Or dared to challenge the status quo.
We had an idea.
Right.
And said, why not?
So next time you fire up your laptop.
Think about Linus.
Think about Linus.
Think about his story.
Think about.
And be inspired.
What he's done.
To create something amazing.
For the world.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this was fun.
For this deep dive.
Until next time.
Until next time.